So something that kind of bothers me about society these days is that we tend to do things the lazy way, and what we don't realize is that the more lazy we get in using machines and things to do things for us, the less we teach our kids and others about how to do things. So now we've got an entire generation of folks out there that don't know how to do some simple skills like splitting wood. And so I wanted to do a quick video for those who are wanting to learn how to split wood that maybe just haven't been told how to do it, to show kind of a basic standpoint on splitting wood. And then what I might do is show some more advanced options with bigger pieces of wood, so that as you get into wood splitting you can kind of grow and learn how to do it.
It's alive.
One up there. I hit that one. Splitting wood isn't really a rocket science. If you're like me and you don't have cable, it's great entertainment, a nice way to let your frustrations out and be productive at the same time. It also is a good source of exercise. So there's a lot of benefits to splitting wood instead of using one of those machines that hook up to the back of the tractor and split it for you. If you're a beginner to splitting wood, a couple basics. Don't split the wood on the ground. Put another piece of wood underneath it. It's basically a chopping block. And what I'll eventually do is, when I get down to this, and this one's looking pretty bad right now, I'll go ahead and split this one up and pull another one over. Generally, you want to try and set a larger piece of wood underneath as a chopping block, because what happens is when you hit this, the ground is going to take some of the impact and keep the wood from splitting. So you need something hard that you're pounding down on. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to use an axe. When you split wood with an axe, the axe is just going to come down, and I'll show you in a minute, maybe on the larger piece, and it's going to stick into the wood, and then you got to fight it to get it out. It's not going to split the wood at all. And this isn't a fancy axe or a fancy splitting maul that I'm using. These are just, cheapo ones from a hardware store, but they work just fine. It doesn't take real fancy pieces of equipment to split wood. If you're out trying to cut down trees with an axe, you might want to get a nicer axe. Basically, when you're splitting the wood, a splitting maul it basically looks like a sledgehammer with a front indenture that looks like a blade. Now, these generally aren't very sharp. They don't need to be sharp. Really, when you're splitting wood, you can split wood with any object that is shaped like this, where it can kind of pound in and split out. It doesn't make a difference on how sharp your maul is, not for this lesson anyway. So let's take a look down at the piece of wood. I'm going to show you where you want to try and hit the wood to split it. So this is an aged piece of wood, and it's cut to length about 12 inches. You could go up to 18 inches. You could split wood that's a lot longer than this as well, but I would suggest if you're new to splitting wood, you kind of stick with something that's in the 12-inch range. The other thing is that this wood has been sitting outside and aging for a while. This one I actually dug out from underneath the tree, so it's got some mushrooms growing on it. But the nice thing about an aged piece of wood is that it's already started to split and crack naturally for you, so you can see your contour lines. Now, I'll do another video with a fresher cut piece of wood, and we'll discuss how to find where those natural break points will be from looking at the grains. But for starting out, you're probably better off with a piece of wood like this that has had some time to age outside. And then when you swing your maul down, you're going to want to try and hit where these cracks are, because those cracks will just split down through the wood and they'll break the wood up. Now, when you put your piece of wood on the chopping block, it's not unusual that your saw cuts are not going to be perfectly straight. So I would suggest what you do is, my chopping block isn't perfectly straight. That allows me the ability to kind of maneuver this the way I want it, so I can try and have a nice clean flat surface somewhere to hit down on right where I want to hit it. So that's pretty much how you would adjust for it. It's just kind of move it around. You want to make sure it's secure, but you also want to make sure that you've got a good clean striking place. So I'm going to zoom this in here so you can see where the axe actually comes down and hits this piece of wood, and show you how simple it is to actually split wood. Your aim isn't going to be perfect. Nobody's is. If they say it is, they're probably lying to you. My aim is certainly not perfect, so don't be surprised if I don't hit exactly where I want to hit. But I want to try and hit it somewhere right in there. That would be an ideal split spot, but really, because this piece of wood is dried out, I think it'll split anywhere I hit it, right in that area. I'm going to go for this notch because of how this is leaning. So I'm going with it. I totally missed my mark, but you can see that it split apart anyway. So because the wood is dried out, it really doesn't have to be a perfect hit. It's going to split. Neither one of these pieces, splitting once, is going to be enough to achieve what I want to achieve as far as splitting this up into smaller pieces. So I'm going to have to hit this again. And a lot of these you're going to have to hit multiple times. I am going to show you a trick in another video on how you can hold this together so you don't have to chase your pieces all over the place constantly and put them back up here and break them again. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try and split it this time right in here, and hopefully my aim is a little better. I think if I hit it right in here, I'm going to get a couple more splits than what I did the last time. Cut this piece in half. And the only piece that's left in that pile that I think I should split again is this first piece. When they get small like this, you have to be careful, because if you miss at all, that board's gonna go flying. But that worked just fine. Now when you get down to the chopping block, and there's chopping block is in need of replacement, I will generally just go ahead and split it on the ground, but that's because I've already been pounding away at it, and it shouldn't be that hard to split. But it's going to take several swings to break a larger block. It doesn't help that as I'm trying to break this, the ground is taking part of the impact. That is a hard one. see it's starting to split up in here. This is where a knot in the tree was. So yeah. Now, this is why this one is so hard to split. There was a knot in the tree, so instead of the grains running a long ways like this, they kind of went out, curved, and tightened back up on either end. That does make splitting a lot trickier. This particular piece of wood would have been a lot easier to split if it were on top of another splitting block. If the grains were straight, like they were on some of my other chopping blocks, splitting this would have been a lot easier. I could have done it in a lot less swings, but now that it's split, it'll be a lot easier to break apart from this point on. So that's the basics of splitting wood. I hope you learned something from it. Anybody can split wood with a few swings. You don't have to swing super hard to split it. It can be kind of fun to make it a game to see if you can split each piece with a single swing, but you risk damaging your equipment. This maul is actually cracked all along there from me trying to powerhouse it. But it's just the drier your wood, the other thing is that the cooler the temperature is outside, that helps you break the wood a little easier as well. This piece has been sitting down on the ground. The wood's real damp. That combined with the fact that the ground was taking part of the impact made splitting this one a heck of a lot harder than splitting that smaller one that we put up on top. It's also a much deeper piece of wood, but anybody can split wood. Super easy, good exercise. Go out and give it a try. After you perfect a few skills, come back. I'll be showing how to keep your wood together as you split it so that you don't have to pick up all the pieces constantly. I'm also going to show you a method of how you can split wood with an axe, which I would suggest you do on some of your smaller branches that you need to split. Some of the ones that are, when they get about this size in diameter or smaller, it could be hard to get a perfect swing on them. So I'm going to show you a way that you can split these with an axe. So we'll be having some fun with that as well.